some foolish people out here who look at their personal relations with white folk. And they have good white friends. And I'm not doubting the sincerity of the friendship. Not at all. Not at all. I do not doubt that blacks and whites can be truly friendly. And we should be friendly as people. And I don't see any problem with having those friends, But do not confuse your personal relations with the relations between groups. Do not always assume that the dynamics that determine your personal relationships are the same dynamics that can be used between groups. That's a serious error that a lot of people make.
I live by the code, that's my eye. Whipping vegan food up in my pot. Why they claim I acted so unruly? Cause I'm listening to while it moving Rudy.
Peace, everyone. Geechie Motivator here again with experience number 7, and we're talking to a powerful sister about eldership, intergenerational relationships, and things like that. Sister, go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll get started.
Well, my name is Keisha, native of Brooklyn, New York, co-host of Thorough Black Talk Radio, community activist. I am considered here in New York a subject matter specialist as it relates to state-sanctioned murders in the United States. I am a board member of an organization, Sisterhood with a Purpose. I am a board member of Revolutionary Black Goddesses, which is another organization. I am the former assistant director for the Freedom Retreat for Boys and Girls. The first person in my district to seek ballot status and run for office on an independent, Black financed, Black-led political party. So I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm an aunt, a great aunt. I don't know. What else you want to know, brother?
You're everything, and you're an African woman, even better. And so you're going to fit right into this conversation as we suspected, because we're talking about intergenerational relationships, eldership, going around these topics. And I kind of want to open it up with, could you speak about the current conditions from your perspective and your experience, the current conditions of eldership in our community? When you look at New York, you look at anywhere, what is the state of our eldership currently?
Well, that's a pretty broad question. So we're going to try to break it down as best as we could. As far as it relates to the care of eldership in the United States or abroad, I think that there is some fracture in how we do that and how we care for our elders. There is a fracture in the relationship that a lot of elders have with generations after them. There is a duopoly of codependency, if you will, with the eldership and the community. And that doesn't matter where you come from. Of course, we have different customs, different beliefs, but in the general sense of things, we always, no matter where I've traveled around the world and families that I've interacted with, there is a common thread. That common thread is that you hold elders in your family and in your community at high esteem. Meaning, you could have been doing something on the street, coming up, but once the elder came on the block, you knew to cut it out right away. You understand? If you seen an elder coming home from shopping or what have you, you knew right away to take those grocery bags or whatever it is he or she may have been carrying. Even in the case where you had, of course, we all got the neighborhood alcoholic, the drunk. Even then, in that aspect, that relationship, you never saw them being beat on, spat upon, and things of that nature the way that you see it now. I think that the United States government and as well as other international governments, caused a serious fracture, the drug epidemic in our community, that caused a wedge, if you will, in that philosophy of how we should relate to our elders and how our elders should relate to us.
That's important. I actually want to get into that. From your perspective, you can go as deep as you want or broad as you want. What kind of role has Europeans, Yorugu, whatever you want to call them, what kind of role have they played specifically in breaking down our eldership, the relationship, and just the elders just in general, but definitely the relationship between the youth?
Well, first it came at the hands of overt and covert poverty, if you will, because that allowed them to send in all of their tentacles, if you will, to control our community, where it be health. You have issues in our community with health. You have issues in our community with the family structure as we know it to be. As far as back as I believe the early 1960s, there was a big foot push by the government to remove Black men from the household. And this was a requirement if the families wanted to be fed who could not feed themselves. So if you applied for public assistance in any way, it was mandatory that you not have any man in the household. And that began for me the serious fracture in our cultural beliefs and in our cultural norms. And then after that, you saw a decrease in the mental capacity of Black men to deal with such, being pushed out of their homes, away from their families, away from their children. That then caused, a descent into destruction. You had alcoholism, drug abuse. You had a disrespect for the role of women in the community, and women looked down upon the men because they saw them as not being the providers and the protectors that they should be. And so this was a key element in breaking down the family structure here in the United States. And then after that, you had the big boom of the crack epidemic that caused even a greater wedge, if you will, within the family. You had family who were broken up and still broken up to this very day. I still know people who were arrested and tried, in the 80s and still incarcerated today because of that. So, and their families totally broken. And what we have to understand, brother, is that we are studied on a continuum. We are studied on a daily basis. Our enemies know what we like, what we don't like, where we live, where we don't live, where we aspire to live, what we want to do. And so they have think tanks, they have a military, they have a political structure to keep these things in place, no matter who is at the helm. It is the structure that is maintained, and that has permeated throughout the world. When you look at the competitiveness of the Asian and the Arab with the Caucasian, they seem to have the same philosophy. They seem to understand and know equally that the bread and butter of their growth, their wealth, and their success depends on our suffering. And so we're going to have to begin to pull back these layers and understand that we are our only allies. We have to come together as families, as communities. We're going to have to, as I said on my program the other night, that we're going to have to get out of our comfort zone in order to save not only our elders, but ourselves. War is not pretty. War is not easy. You're going to have to go back on the street corners. Yeah, those young dudes with the pants pulled down and smoking blunts, get right in the cipher. Get right in the cipher. You have to do that. War is not pretty. So that's where I'm at with it, and we better move and move quickly. The way things are happening.
Yeah, I love that answer. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for coming in. Also on Facebook, any comments, questions, feel free to join in the discussion. Um, I like what you said by I'll paraphrase it into the parasitic ideology of Europeans and those people who have proximity to whiteness.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we really are willing to deal with the concept and their ideology of like using us as their stepping stone. Like it almost would say the American dream is to take apart and exploiting African people in African land. Um,
Mhm.
and so it's it's almost mind-boggling how I don't want to say it's mind-boggling because I know education and propaganda puts us in this space, but it's unfortunate how our people are unaware that we're being warred upon. I'm afraid to say we're in a war because we ain't fighting back. So we're being
Exactly.
warred upon.
Right.
How do we begin to place elders back in their space, right? And then towards that connection, because I don't see us getting out of this situation without that thing being healed or rejoined. So how do you see us um, placing them back? How can we place them back into that role?
Well, I don't want our family to look at this as some sort of big feat that is something great we must master to get this done. What you have to do is be active in your own family. Be one with your own family. You have siblings, you have aunts, cousins, brothers, sisters, or close, people, friends that you consider family. Become one with them. Be that voice in your family that everybody can rock with. So what I mean by that is, how I may articulate myself on this particular program may not be how I articulate myself amongst in family gatherings. However, the message will remain the same. You have to be a I don't want to say a force to be reckoned with, but yeah, that's pretty much it within your own family structure without being a tyrant. You know
Right.
what I mean? You got to be that go-to person. When something go down in a family, yeah, they calling you. When something exciting happening in the family, they call you because you have to be that bridge that gets it back together again. So you have to have, yeah, these family get-togethers that you may not feel like having. Have these family get-togethers so that your direct relatives can see what a family structure is and how you should behave. And then you take that out into your community. You understand what I'm saying? So when you go outside of your house, on your street, your block, your road, drive, or wherever it is, that your neighbors look at you as someone they should respect. And they will carry themselves in that manner. You don't have to force it on them. You don't have to push it on them and shove it down their throat. That's not how Sister Keisha moves. I don't. But I get respect and love no matter where I go because I give that.
Right.
I give that. And I also have an aura about me. I'm not tolerating no nonsense. We can rock, but I'm not tolerating no nonsense. So, like I said, from prime ministers to pimps on the block, they give me the same kind of love and same type of respect because of who I am. We have to stop talking about things and be about things.
Love it. Love it. You know,
That's
it's important because oftentimes we hear and on and off of social media, especially in the communities where I don't think it's wise for you to communicate that you're a leader. I think that's something
fact.
that's given to you by the people that see you as a leader, or
Facts.
I'm this or I'm that, and quite often we see that. Is what you think about this question or statement from Antoine? Isn't that the man's responsibility to make sure his family is under one roof and not dependent on a woman to provide a stable home? What's your thoughts?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the vein that I come from. When I chose my husband, And that's a fact. Uh, Brothers, we choose you. Let us be clear. But when I chose my husband, I looked for what I saw in my uncles. See, my father was deceased a month before I was born. I was in my mother's belly, 8 months, when she lost her husband, my father. And his brothers, his brother-in-laws, his male cousins, his nephews stepped in that role of being that father for me. And so I always, and still today feel extremely protected no matter where I go, because if I call them brothers in my family, you don't want that smoke. You don't. So that's the vein that I come from. And the brother is absolutely right. But you have to understand, brother, until we have a military to protect our family, they can come in and destroy us at a moment's notice. At a moment's notice. And as Black men, I would encourage all of you to become one with your communities again, because it is your responsibility to protect that. So if the killer cops come in, the baby rapists come in, the wife abusers come in, if the dope man come in, that's on you. That's on you. Now, if the household is out of control and the community well-being is out of control, that's on us. That's on us. And sisters, if your home ain't in order, you can forget it. Don't even think, don't go outside and try to fix nothing.
I appreciate that. I want to ask you this question, and I think you kind of hinted to it, but you can go in further. When you think of an elder, is it someone based off of their age or for their life work? How do you kind of navigate around that? I mean, I know obviously you need to respect people at all or whatever, but in terms of eldership, speaking, calling people elder, do you think age or action has or how do you grade the age or action to determine somebody being an elder?
I believe it to be both. It's both. One, we cannot lump a ideal of an elder into one category, because we all come from different walks of life, different states, different countries, and those customs are very different. I feel that, as I open with, the elders have a serious responsibility. It is your responsibility to not only maintain our cultural norms and pass those down, but you have to be exemplary in how you approach it. You cannot get stuck in your ways, if you will, or become a tyrant, if you will, and feel that you are garnered or should be given some sort of respect because of your age. Your age should bring wisdom. That wisdom should be bestowed upon the community. Remember, elders, you are borrowing this earth from the youth, and it has to be returned back to them. So if you're going to return the earth and all that it is back to the youth, you have to be of great standing. And a lot of us, unfortunately, brother, or excuse me, a lot of elders, because I'm not at that stage yet, but a lot of elders, because they have been beaten so badly by this system, sometimes when they are put in a position of leadership, they become just as the white man, if not worse. And that is a problem. You cannot rule as a dictator. It does not work. Society must flow like water. So no matter, if let's say Brother Geechie was, I don't know, 75 years of age and died in the wood Christian, shouting Jesus Christian. It is his responsibility to humble himself in his age, in his and in his religion, so that the youth would want to come to him for guidance, for leadership, and for wisdom on how to push forward. If you push that on somebody, that's standoff. I'm not trying to hear that, Pops. I don't want to hear that. You talking crazy. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of us don't know how to humble ourselves when we dealing with our people. We just don't. We don't. I'm not above nobody. You understand? Well, I come from the grain of there's no one man or woman above the crew. Period. So as you move into eldership, keep that in mind, that you have to humble yourself, because as my uncle once said, when you die and leave this earth, I'm getting a little choked up because I also lost a cousin yesterday. But anyway, it's not the day that you're born and the day that you leave this world that is important. What is important is that dash in the middle. That dash in the middle, what have you done in your life that will be passed on from generation to generation to generation? Could be small things, could be big things. You have stories within your family. Oh, Aunt so-and-so was something else. Or Uncle so-and-so was something. You understand? He was, or she was nothing to play with, or he was nothing to play with. Uncle so-and-so had their own business. The first person to buy a house in the family, so-and-so and so. These stories have to be passed on. And I find a lot, brother, that those of us in the movement for liberation don't even know our own family history. A lot don't know their family history. And that's very, very important, because that gives you your blueprint of what you must follow. I remember my Uncle Bob, peace be upon him, used to always talk about the men in his family. And he passed on that information to us. When we were children, we would sit at the kitchen table and homework was being done. And my step-pops would come in there, lay those newspapers down. Let's talk current events and let's put it from a Black perspective. So you have to pass those traditions on in your family. Get to know your aunt so-and-so. Get to know Uncle so-and-so. Listen to their stories. And it's a lot of wealth and information that you can hold and pass on, because if we don't get the family back, if we don't get the cultural structure of the family back intact, we're playing with ourselves. And if you think the slaughter is bad now, it's going to be 10 times worse for generations to come. And that's a fact.
Yeah, you said so many powerful things, and definitely what you just shared from your now ancestor. And we're going to get into some of that information and kind of back and forth between youth and elders. But one of the things that I think Baba Amos said this, and a few other people, about when we look at history, we need to stop focusing on celebrating the figures and focus on their life lessons, right? What you learned on there. So when you think about, like you said, the death and the birth, and in between is kind of the most important thing. I think that's just a powerful statement. And also, like when you talk about the, I would call it fear versus logic that the elders have in terms of what's best for the group, right? And you think about African centered, right? And people trying to go back to 2,000 years ago, what worked for Africans then. And a wise person once says, African centered was best for African people currently, right?
Facts.
What do you think about, how would you speak to those youth and elders in helping either one or both of them break stuff that we can't carry into our future if we try to liberate ourselves? Like some of the things we have that, family traditions or whatever. How do you speak to, again, both of those groups to break something that maybe the youth might be carrying or still doing, or the elder might be carrying and holding on to?
Example is the best teacher. Example is the best teacher. And let me explain something. When I was the assistant director for the Freedom Retreat for boys and girls, or the girls portion, we had an activity that we wanted to teach the children about entrepreneurship and marketing and strategy and sales and how to um, be successful in that. And we had a product that we knew that the children, these are young girls now, ages 7 to 16, would not have an interest in selling or promoting. And we chose that because we wanted our children to get out of their safe net of thinking they know it all, right? Even some of the elders who were there, they was like, y'all, this ain't gonna work, you know. And shout out to brother Tyrone, we had to show him. And so what we did was we broke up the young ladies into 3 different sections. The product that we gave them to sell was mixed CDs, old school CDs. And when we first gave them the product, the first thing that came out of their mouths was, ain't nobody gonna buy this stuff. We don't, oh man, we're gonna be wasting our time. It's hot out here. We gotta be standing out here all these hours. I said, okay. So I gave them the blueprint. We went through the sales strategy. Only took about an hour. And I gave them a guarantee that if you do not sell out of your product today, before the day is out, I will double the money you would have made on selling that product, not just to each of you as a group. I'm going to give each of you that amount of money. I'm going to prove to you that I know what I'm talking about. And so we did the activity, and they followed the instructions that Brother Tyrone and myself gave them. Not only did they not sell these mixed old school CDs, but they sold out in an hour. And the exercise was to show them that, 1, you have to learn how to listen. 2, if you're going to sell a product, you may not love it, but you must make sure your consumer does. You have to know what it is to build a loyal consumer base and keep that loyal consumer base happy at all costs. And once they got the fundamentals of it, they loved it. The next day they wanted to do it again, but we wasn't doing it again because I just wanted wanted them to get a taste of, 1, like I said, learn how to listen. 2, follow instructions. And 3, don't get in your own way, right? And so we carried that on into an activity or a class that we had to take the following day, which was a criminal defense case with Attorney Maddox. Now, I said, we are not going to study the way that you normally do. Throw all of that stuff out of the window. We're going to play a game of Jeopardy. So we started playing Jeopardy. I broke them down into groups, and we started talking about, his assignment to us was to find historically significant cases that Black attorneys tried. And he told us that he would be there the following day, which means they had 24 hours to get it done. They got it done, and he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe the wealth of information they were able to come up with overnight. He was like, they had to cheat. But I told him that wasn't the case. The case was, you got to learn how to listen. Even as an elder, you got to learn how to listen. The elders who were there, they were like, you wasted your time. No, I'm not. Learn how to listen, because somebody may have a different way of doing things, and some of us have expertise on how to do things. We can't do it all. And sometimes our elders get stuck in that. You know, I'm the end all be all. No, you're not.
Right.
No, you're not. Brother Geechie is in media. He know what he doing. He don't try to come over into the legal field and tell Brother Vernon Jackson how to try a case. Right. You sound crazy. You stay in your lane and you work your lane. And I believe that our elders have to understand that, because our children will pick it up immediately. Just like they do on the street. When you go outside and watch the kids who is hustling, they follow every step that they are given to produce that product, to sell that product, to get that money, to bring it back, to re-up. They know exactly what to do, step by step. Not years to do it, step by step. We have to do that. Elders, please get out of your own way.
Right.
Because our children, we open for it. We open for it.
Right. You know, one thing that I was thinking about as you was talking, and I want to get into Twan's question, and that's going to push us into some more dialogue. But matching the elders' wisdom and whatever other virtues they have with the youth's ambition, creativity, innovation, and whatever virtues they have has been, I wonder how many things fell apart because that failed to happen. And then again, now I don't want to say like pro youth and let them get away from the integrity, but also anti youth and get away from the growing. Example, if you have a mom and pop shop that was rocking since the 40s, 60s, I don't know, and it's social media time now, and you ain't on social media, and I can help you with social media, and you're like, I don't want that. And when you tank, it's almost like, so it's like matching the new age evolving, right? Being African centered in 2020, but the elders help you remain African centered. So it's kind of like a, balancing scale. Ron says that today's youth do not respect nor fear their elders or their parents, and I blame this generation of parents for that. How you feel about that?
One, the reason that you see a lot of disrespect of youth towards elders is because they see more than we saw, more than our parents see or saw, and our grandparents. They have an access, a window to the world, if you will. And if you live in a world where you're the underdog, and those who came before you was supposed to build something, a structure that you can fall right into, that you can call your own. You don't do that, yeah, they're going to disrespect you. Yeah, they're going to do it. Just like I'm sure they did their parents. Yeah, it's going to happen. However, you still got to roll up your sleeves and you still got to get it done. You got to show them another way. I ran for politics, not for myself, so that my family can have a blueprint, so that my nephews, nieces, my children, the grandchildren, cousins, those coming after me say somebody in our family did that. So I could do that. I don't disrespect people in my family, so they don't disrespect me. Sometimes, even when you're going outside, a lot of these elders, that's what I'm saying, you cannot get stuck in your way. You can't. You can't. I see them going to the supermarket, whatever. Very disrespectful. Very disrespectful. And sometimes I have to get in the middle of things. Because one, I'm not going to let nobody put no hands on them. And two, I don't want to see none of y'all get killed out here where these police is acting.
Right.
You understand? At least not on my watch. And so, elders, get out of your way. You gave us the wisdom. Now we got to pick up the tools and run with it. And we got to run with those tools and build a structure so that those coming after us, see, they got the structure. Let's slide right on in there and take it over. Generation X, which is us, yeah, this is our call. This is our responsibility. So all of that information that you got from the greats, Amos Wilson, Dr. Clark, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor Smalls, Pam Africa, Dr. Filet, I sat at the feet of all of them. I took that wisdom. Instead of living in a one-bedroom apartment, bought a home. Instead of slaving my whole life to somebody else, started not a business, but multiple businesses, right? Somebody had to do something, right? So you be that person. Brother, don't be afraid to get involved. I'm telling you, if you see these young cats out here, then you school them. And best believe them elders going to be listening, because How I became active, brother, I didn't just take it upon myself to do this. The elders came to me
Right.
because they saw how I moved. So get out there and be active, my brother.
That's important. I remember a group of men in the church wanted to bring me in to speak to some youth. Um, and it was a bunch of disagreement in the group. One man was like, "Man, those youth, they're stuck in their ways." He's talking about youth now. Like young kids stuck in their ways and they ain't gonna never change. This man saying that when he's actually talking about himself. I was like, you know what? Let's forget about speaking to the youth. Let me just speak to y'all. Let's set up an event when we speak to y'all. Because the I don't know, it's just insane. And like you said, Baba Amos specifically, I remember I think it was Black on Black violence when he talked about the reason why the youths are beating you in your head is because you didn't do what you're supposed to do for them. Like you're supposed to create structure, like you said,
Right.
sources, feed them, educate them, and you ain't doing none of that. So, I mean, what else? What else you want them to do? They're gonna take it since you ain't giving. So
Right, because like I say, they see. They have a window to the world now, computer right at the fingertips. So now they see, wait a minute, every other ethnic group ain't catching this hell. Now, what's going on here? Now, don't think that there is no serious cultural breakdowns in other ethnic groups. Now, I've been to China, so I know what I'm talking about. I come from the fashion and the shoe industry. I know what I'm talking about. You got the breakdown of cultural norms happening in China right now. They got metal detectors in the schools in China because of cheating. The kids is bringing in all kind of devices so they can use to cheat on a lot of these entry exams. And their reasoning was, we don't have the tools that Caucasians and other folks have to put us at a level playing field where we could compete. So we doing it our way.
Right.
And you can Google it. Cheating scandals in China. It's crazy.
Right. I mean, that's real. I want to go towards like some numbers and differences in elders and treating with others. It is estimated in 2030 there's going to be 7.3 million African elders in America. And we tend to have different values, like you said earlier, for our care for elders, unlike Yoruba and those other folks who just throw them in a nursing home or whatever. What is the upside to those values? And then what are some advice? If we are taking better care of our elders and other people, again, what are some upside to that? And then what are some other advice that you have?
Well, what I'll do with deal with the ups first. The ups is like here, down the block from where I live at, there is a senior home. And in that senior home is all of us are in there. But the staff look like us. When they leave outside of their resident, all they see is us. And all of us are there cleaning up the grounds, taking care of the grounds, and making sure that is in place. Not letting them hire some Yoruba to come in and do it, right? And so people in the neighborhood see us do it, and then they want to join in. You see what I'm saying? We have, at least where I live, and that's where I can only speak of. Where I reside is still predominantly Black here in Brooklyn. Most of the independent businesses are people who look like you and me. So that means if I want to go to a hardware store or the 99-cent store or have a drink at the sports bar, I'm contributing to Black business. And you don't have that in a lot of communities. Now, on the downside, we're going to have to put ourselves in positions where we can have structures that are beneficial to not only our elders, but those who come after us. And what I mean by that, right now you have all of this hoopla of the presidential election going on right now. It's our responsibilities. That's one of the reasons why I ran for the community board. You know, I'm all over the place, but you do it because I want to be the one to make the decisions around here. Meaning, if Brother Geechie has, I don't care if it's a McDonald's franchise, and if you don't eat McDonald's, I don't care. But if it's going to be here, his franchise is the one that's going to be here, not some other ethnic group. If there is a laundromat that has to go up in the neighborhood, I don't want no Arab to have no laundromat.
Mhm.
So now we're going to have to put ourselves in positions politically to protect that. Meaning you're going to have to run for these community boards. You're going to have to run for these local offices. You're going to have to be a stalemate in the face of businesses in the areas in which you live. Like, for example, you had a bodega owned by an Arab guy, a couple of blocks east from where I am, and they were selling that synthetic marijuana.
Mhm.
Right? They got people bugging out, and so I went in the store. I guess nobody ever asked them. I said, "So you can't sell that here
Mhm.
because that." And I pulled up a video on YouTube to show them what it was doing to people. I said, "We cannot have that here." I said, "Because you have a men's homeless shelter, you have a men's halfway house, right? Men coming in and out trying to get them lives together. We cannot have this on this corner because it's going to have a whole lot of crime, and we don't want that over here." You know, he took it off the shelf just because I asked. And that's what I'm saying. We so complacent with what we see. If we don't get involved, if we don't open our mouths, if we don't open our pockets, that is another thing. You know, you're going to have to control where you are, period. We're going to have to do that. So let's get into it, family. Let's get into it. Be active, be active, be active, be active, period.
You know, I appreciate that. And before I get into Antoine's next question, you made a statement about running for office, which you have done, and you very politically active. And Jared Ball has written a book, the Myth of the Black Buying Power, the Myth and Propaganda of the Black Buying Power. It has pushed itself into the conscious community and making some people feel some type of way because he's exposing that we don't actually have this $1 trillion, and it will take policy and political action to do that, because the wealth that you're saying you want to mimic, they got it through policy and violence.
Thank
So if you
you.
don't want to do policy and violence, then you ain't getting that kind of wealth.
Thank you.
So when you, and this might be off topic from the elders and generations, but I guess it's still connected. Could you please speak to the holistic totality of what it's going to take for us to respond to these Urugu? Maybe yours is black business and circulating dollar, but you also need to be connected to the policymakers, because while you circulating a dollar and you paying taxes, right? Because this is what I said too, like African people, African blood, African labor, and African taxes has built institutions for other groups.
Facts.
The tax that you pay annually, the tax that you pay when you buy stuff, right? That's my institution. So why be like this? Oh, I'm gonna do it by myself, and I don't want to use the government help, but pay the government taxes and not tell them how to spend that money. So again, I know there's probably a lot, but can you speak a little bit to that? Like, we need a holistic view, and we need to stop using myths that help us point the blame on ourselves. How we need to respond to these people.
Facts. And that was my platform that I ran on. I remember one instance we were in the middle of a debate with someone who was running on the Republican Party for the controller. And my question to him was, what percentage of the city budget can you allot to African American plumbers? I didn't say realty companies, construction workers, I said plumbers. And I did that for a reason. And he said, and I quote, "The most that I will probably be able to do is get 3 to 5% of those contracts for African Americans." Excuse me. And I said, Sir, that's not acceptable. Because if I live in a district where 90% of the people look like me, that means 90% of the businesses are supposed to represent me, 90% of the educational structures. At that time, that's when the charter school program was kicking in full force. I said we have to have control of that. We also have to have control of any development on any land as it relates to our community specifically.
Right.
So he says in response, well, that would be biased and unjust. So I said, well, his excuse me, his previous employment was he was a broker for Merrill Lynch.
Wow.
And I said, well, it is that same type of bias that allowed you to have a successful career with Merrill Lynch. It is that same type of bias that allows you to live in Lower Manhattan in the Chelsea section. It is that type of bias that allowed you to even run as a candidate on that platform. There is a Republican boss. There is a Democrat boss. They just like mob bosses. So you were allowed to be what you are and be successful as you are through those same type of, as he called them, antics in my answer that you benefit from.
Right.
So when you come with them with facts like that, there is no rebuttal. All he can do is says, well, if you vote for me, we can try. And I said, well, that, sir, is not acceptable. Because when you went to sit down with the Satmar group, which is a large Hasidic group here in Brooklyn, you did not say those very same things to them. And how do I know that, sir? Because I was there. And then I pulled out the minutes. I was there right behind you. And I know what you said. So that's why it's important that we get involved politically. We have to show up at these town hall meetings. You have to know who your city council person should know you like they know their kids.
Right.
You understand? No matter who the representative in my district is, and some of them like me, some do not, and I could care less. They all know who the hell I am.
Right.
So you have to have a political structure, right, to maintain what you build. You can't have a nation without a political structure. It does not work. And I don't know a government that does. Show me one, I'll yield to the floor. 2, you have to have a military apparatus. The brothers and the sisters should be able to protect where you live. Right here in New York City, I live across the street from a housing project. I found out, now I don't live in NYCHA, but I found out going to these meetings when all the corruption came to surface is that even the stores, the bodegas surrounding the housing projects, those opportunities were originally for the tenants that they didn't even know about. 2, whenever you go to a housing project in New York City, if you're robbed, if you're raped, if you get shot, NYCHA is responsible for that. Now, I've never seen security in any NYCHA buildings. And so they are at fault. And that's why there's such a big scandal here in New York. And they're passing the buck between Mayor de Blasio, Governor Cuomo, and HUD, Ben Carson. They all passing the buck around because there is so much corruption that has happened here. And I would not have known that if I wasn't involved. And I grew up in NYCHA as a kid. I lived in the projects. We didn't know any of this. You understand? And now when you look out, you got a Chinese restaurant, right? The Chinese own liquor store too. You know, all of these entities were a part of the allotment under the RAD contract for NYCHA, that these things belong to the tenants, and I don't see the tenants. So we have to be politically involved. We have to protect what we have.
And that's so important when you know, like I hope people can like probably slow this down and like rewind and listen to some of the things. So you're dropping so much stuff, and I don't know if people are catching a lot of it. One of the things that, you know, a lot of things come to mind as you're talking, Cuomo, and his daddy, Bill Clinton, they've always been profit over people. Everything that it was doing was profit over people. And if you're not even politically conscious at some level, you will just be Bill Clinton played the saxophone, smoke weed, and cheat on his wife. That man black, right? Um, but one of the things that, and why I brought that book up is because people are feeling some type of way because he came at Dr. Amos's regurgitation of buying power, right? Dr. Amos used that thing in '93 that John Johnson from Jet Magazine used to sell black consumers to white corporations, and it was a mythical number. And I know Dr. Amos was trying to prove a point, but if you look through his whole book, he actually talks about policy formation. He actually talked about the economic balance happening. So if he was alive today, he would be like, "You're right. I didn't look into the study. I just pulled that study and put it in, the topic."
Right.
So
And a lot of that comes from people, brothers, not people knowing, because like I said, I'm from New York, and we were fortunate enough here in New York to sit under the best of the best. And I can tell you that before Dr. Amos Wilson made his transition, he worked hard to build the Black Credit Union. At that time, you had people in office. You got to look at not just Andrew Cuomo, but his father, Mario Cuomo. These are mob bosses. It's a fact. There was a time when Mario Cuomo, the father, took a trip to Italy, and Costa Nostra was contemplating killing him in Italy. These are mob figures. New York politics, Chicago politics, Baltimore politics, Boston politics, LA politics, Miami politics, all mob control.
Right.
Y'all hear me? Mob control. And they put themselves in a position to protect what they have. This is a gangster government. It has gangster allies. It operates in gangsterism. It was formulated in gangsterism. We got here through that mechanism. Gangsterism. You go on a block and you take that block. Right. That's what happened with us. So get involved in politics, begin to peel back the layers, and you can see how easy it is, how easy it would be for us to take this thing over overnight.
So I want you to briefly respond to this, and it's kind of touched on. We talked about what makes an elder, but Antoine says he feels like the elders are getting younger and younger, and instead of trying to teach the young to try to be, they're trying to be the same level as the young. No mother should be in the club with her daughter. No father should be in the club with her daughter. Briefly respond to that before we go to the next question.
Well, yes, generations are younger. In fact, those of us who are living longer are looking younger. A lot of us are working out and all of that stuff. So all of that is true. What happened was when Big Mama passed on from diabetes, there was a lot of information that Big Mama didn't pass on. And the stresses of the family became so unbearable that a lot of women yielded to their responsibilities. And that is a fact. Anybody who knows me in New York, some of the videos you see I post, brother Geechie, I'm very cool with a lot of DJs. That was my life. You understand what I'm saying? I was that girl back then. But it came to a point, I had given birth to my daughter, and I was getting ready to go out that night. She was maybe 11 months old, 11 months old. And I was taking her to my mom for my mom to keep her for the night while I went out. And I dropped her off at my mother's house. I met up with my friends, regular clique. And when we was at the club that night, I just turned to my best friend and I said, I'm done. I'm done. And one of the DJs who was playing music that night, he overheard me. He said, "What? You ain't done?" Facts, brother. I have my own theme song like Shaft when you come in the club. This is a fact. That's how it was with me. And nobody could believe it. And I went, we partied or whatever, came back home that night, and my mom was telling me, your cousin Teresa's been calling you. Call your cousin TT. And I said, oh man. So I call her. And this is like maybe 6 a.m. She said, Keisha, I want to go to the Million Woman March. I'll go to the Million. I said, well, what you call me for? You know what I'm saying? But you know everybody. I know you know somebody who got a bus going down there. I said, all right, let me place a phone call. So I called friend from the projects, Tyran. I said, I know y'all got buses. My cousin and her friend want to go. She said, all right, we got seats. Tell them come on. Call my cousin back and I say, they got 2 seats for y'all. Y'all have a good time. My cousin say, yo, ASS is going with us. I'm like, what? I'm hungover. This ain't working out for me. So anyway, we ended up getting there. But we vibe with so well with the women on the bus and the women who we met out there. And it was just profound. Mind you, I had said the night before, I said that was enough for me. Right. And so I think that my ancestors, my mom, my grandmother, my aunts, who I sat at their feet and learned what womanhood is and what it should be, was calling me and telling me to go there. And I went there and, my cousin and Nay, shout out to Nay, as wild as they are, now we want to be in the front. We getting in the front. We going up to the front. We ain't got no tickets for the front. We getting to the front. We got to the front. And lo and behold, we standing where the porta potties was when the speakers was coming off. And boom, right there, Winnie Mandela to reach out and hug me. I didn't know my behind from my elbow. I told you I was hungover, but to hug me and to give me an assignment. And then when she came off, Betty Shabazz gave me an assignment. Sister Soldier gave me an assignment. Dr. Filet gave me an assignment. And if you knew who I was back then, my word is my bond. If I gave my word on something, my word is my word. And when I came back that night, total 360, turned around, put everything back in my head again, if this is what I really want. And then I began an intense study, if you will. Like I always had a sense of self, right? A sense of consciousness from my family, my grandmother and my mother, and they made sure of that. But to put it all in perspective, I began a path of intense study and literally, brother, for years on end. If I got maybe 3 hours a night of sleep, I was good because I was studying nonstop. And then I began to get active. And then the partner I was with, I had to let him go because now we ain't on the same page. So I'm sorry. I wish you the best in life, but this between you and us ain't gonna work. Right. And then I progressed, got more and more active, more not in the community, but in my family. I started doing research on my own family to find out that the 5th great uncle fought in the Civil War, then broke into the armory, and then took weapons out of there and armed the community. And then I found another cousin who was in the Civil War on mother's side. And I'm like, wow, this is blowing my mind. And then I found out the history of my great-grandparents. Great-great-grandparents actually owned speakeasies right here in Brooklyn. And how the Irish mob came in and took everything. And so then it began a path for me. I know what my mission is. Right. I got to get vengeance for mine, period. So at all costs, I'm where Malcolm said we should be. And I'm going to say it live right here. It's politics and bloodshed. Politics and bloodshed. And that's where I'm at with it. And so not everybody is at this point, but you got to get there. And what's happening right here, right now, family, if you are not active, turn to your sister and tell her, this is not how you do things. This is not how you do things. It's going to be a hard fight.
Mhm.
I had the own hard fight with my own daughter, my own cousins, you know, in my own family. You still have their own fight, but you have to be consistent. And one thing they can tell you, my daughter will tell you, my cousins will tell you, my siblings will tell you, I am no shenanigans and I stayed the course. I haven't deviated yet. So that's where I'm at with it, brother.
Love it. So I want to I got a final question that I want you to drive home something for me, but we'll go to Kwame real quick. My daughter put up my newborn grandson for adoption to a white family. In my opinion, she's a traitor of the highest order, and she dealt with as such. What's your opinion? Whew, it's heavy.
Well, um, I don't know the particulars of that case, so I'm just gonna go off of what he posts in the chat. My brother, I will hope that even though the child was adopted, that you can still have contact with that child and hopefully raise that child to be an agent for destruction within that own family that adopted him. So I would hope that you were still involved. And yes, that could be traitorous. I don't know the particulars of that case, but I would never do it, and I would never tolerate it. And anybody in my family who's dating a Yarugu know they can't bring them to my house. So, I don't know what the particulars are, but brother, if you can, be active in that child's life.
I
If you
think, I
can,
think
have some contact with.
yeah, I think he says there's no contact
Oh, I see it here. No contact.
currently. So that's a
Brother, that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard pill to swallow. I don't know the particulars of your family, but I would implore you to be active in your family in a humbling way so that whoever that relative is gets to see the error of her ways and fix it. Because when it all goes down, yeah, she gonna be one you gonna have to take up out of here. Some family members we gonna have to take up out of here. You can't save everybody. But I would hope that you will be able to get in contact with whoever the adoptive parent is and be active in that child's life. And you may have to eat crow for a while because this is a Urugu family and you're a black man and they ain't going to be too kind to you stepping up to their door. But if you can, everything is strategy. You don't know. That could be the one to do it for us right there. So it depends, brother. It depends. But I feel bad for you. I really do. That's a hurtful thing.
yeah. I love that. I love that advice. And I want you to drive this point home. Right, we got the historical youth versus elder battle. You have Garvey representing the young generation today. W.E.B. Du Bois representing the elders of the day. W.E.B. the elders think Garvey and the youth are misguided children. And Garvey and the youth today think the elders are frauds, traitors, assimilationists at best. For this final question, can you impart to them with your words and make them dissolve that conflict and that anger or whatever it is against each other and begin to refocus what we need to be focused
Um, I'm a big, strong proponent of I can show you better than I can tell you. We gonna have to show each other. You gonna have to show and prove, just like you do on the street. You got to show and prove. You can't come on the block and start talking crazy. Nah, if you about it, throw them hands up. If you really about it, and we have to understand we need each other. We have to understand the history of each other. See, you got to know where your parents and grandparents and great grandparents came from. You got to look at that time because that time is what shaped their mindset. And then you look at your time and what's shaping your mindset. Now, looking at Garvey and comparing to W.E.B. Du Bois, there is no comparison. But W.E.B. Du Bois, believe it or not, did have a revolutionary spirit about him. He was a proponent of carrying firearms. This is a history that is not talked about. And so it's just like when someone comes into your house, they have to abide by the rules of your house. They just can't come in your house and open the refrigerator, take what they want, doo-doo on the floor when they feel like it. They can't do that in your house. And so when you're coming into someone's house, and I think that's because let me try to put this as delicately as I possibly can. One of the things that I love to do is study National Archive records. National Archive records allow you to have access to information that a lot of these writers do not have in their books. And when you look at the archives as it relates to, because I'm in New York and I'm very privy, because all of the greats came through New York, from Hubert Harris to Garvey, Malcolm, everybody came to New York. So, and they knew they had to be a force in New York before they could move anywhere else. When Garvey came to New York, he had a political plan that would have been successful here if those here knew what that plan was. A lot of people don't know about Garvey's political fight in Jamaica. He was a force to be reckoned with. Now, when he came here, he did not agree with the methods that W.E.B. and the Talented 10th was moving on, right? And neither did Ida B. Wells. She didn't agree with that either. Neither did Maria Stewart. Didn't agree with that either. However, they knew how to parlay both and use it to their advantage. See, I said in the beginning, we're going to have to deal with the psychology that a lot of us want to win so bad. We take on the identity and the characteristics of the oppressor, right? So I found fault in both, right? I found fault in WB being meek, being too complacent and willing to work with your Rugals when he know damn well what his history was here. He figured he could intellectualize himself. And this is what I'm saying. You come out of enslavement and you take on the identity of the oppressor. Garvey comes in and he's ready to move through like a freight train. However, one of Garvey's biggest problems, and I often say to our people, please study the mistakes of history more than you study the victories, because Garvey thought he could do everything. He can do it all, but you can't do it all. Like I said, Brother Geechie is in media. He don't try to cross over to Vernon Jackson and say, no, I'm going to litigate this case today. You understand what I'm saying? Garvey didn't know how to step off and let people with great minds be successful, right? You want a steamship line, but you ain't never ran one.
Right.
Robert Smalls has. You see what I'm saying? So he should have reached, you see what I'm saying? No, let him do that. It's just like when we have a group event, right? Whether it be Thorough Black Talk or whether it be SWAP or RBG.
Mm-hmm.
On SWAP, I am the board's historian. The other ladies don't try to be the historian. You understand? We have a board member who is responsible for media. I don't cross over there and tell them what to do. We don't have enough respect and courage in one another that they gonna do the job. If I give Brother Geechie the job, guess what? We revolting tonight. Every night we gonna lynch one of them. And you're getting the exclusive. Now, you got to be live at 8 o'clock. How you go live, what streaming platform you use, how many platforms you put it on, that's up to you. I'm not getting involved in that.
Right.
That's for you to run. If it fails, guess what? I'm blaming you.
Right.
You see? And Garvey had an attitude that a lot of greats suffer from, that they can do it all. And you cannot do it all. No great nation has one monarch that does it all. Even the queen has tentacles all over the world to make sure her money keep coming in, and she still remains the queen. She don't get out there with an MK-47 and try to kill people. You understand what I'm saying? Stay in your lane. And I think we can, I know we will be more successful in our gain of liberation and freedom. I do community work with people I may not like, but I'm getting the job done. Right? Case in point, we had to raise money for the Freedom Retreat, right? Because some children, Brother Geechie, came from as far as South Africa and Bermuda and Dominican Republic just to come to our retreat. And so there are different dietary conditions that some of the children had. So we didn't want that extra cost to be put on the parents. And so we raised that money, right? We wanted to raise money to also pay previous debts that the retreat had to the landowner who was Black, right? And so Miss Maddox, she came up with these raffles that held to be sold. So every time she gave me my bunch, I would sell right out. She said, "Who you selling these raffles to? White folks?" Ain't, because the prize would be stuff like third prize a TV, a second prize is a trip to the Great Blacks and Wax Museum, and the first prize would be the trip to the Gullah Festival. Ain't no white folks interested in that. But see, white folks love to give. Great, I got a raffle going on. Give me $5. Come here, Bob. Let me get $5. What you need $5 for? Oh, I'm holding a raffle for some kids in the community. Oh, great, I'll give you $20. You see what I'm saying? War ain't pretty.
Right.
War ain't pretty. So after that, she knew when she gave me my lot, that money was coming back the next day. And all my ticket sales was coming from white folks.
Right.
Period. She knew I knew what I was doing when she asked me to be the assistant director. She didn't say, "Keisha, the class got to start at this time. The girls got to do this at that time." No, you know what you're doing. Here's the keys and you good. She had that faith and that trust in me that I would maintain the same integrity that she did. She passed that on. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So unfortunately, we don't have that ability to disconnect from this dual personality. We have to disconnect from how the oppressor does things. Use those tools, however, but put it in an African perspective so that it is beneficial to us. Everybody does that. Everybody does that.
Love it. Love it. It's so powerful. I always bring to mind that when you think of education, there's no such thing as a neutral education. And the purpose of education is to solve problems. So we would probably need an African-centered education to solve African people problems. That doesn't mean that you won't use things that Europeans have used to achieve their domination, or use things that Europeans might have even created if they've created anything. I won't advise you to be parasitic with them as them, but I think that's powerful. Any final things you want to say and or invite us to or tell us about before we close out the discussion?
Well, I just want to say again, thank you for having me. Thank you to your viewers for taking the time out of their day to sit and converse with us and just pick up some information that you may have not considered before, that you can consider now. Always be forever learning. Keisha doesn't know it all. I learn every day. I ask questions every day. And I am fortunate enough to have great elders in my life who molded exactly what you see here before you. Even those in the community, some of the big names that you know and some that you may not know, have molded what you see before you. And so now I am their vision. I'm here. Now I got to pass that on to someone else. And I'm working on that. And the young sisters that I interact with, they seem to be on the right page. And if you think Sister Keisha is a force to be reckoned with, wait until they come through the door. And just stay focused, family. Never get sidetracked. Always look at things from a proverbial view, if you will. Don't look at things one-sided. Take the good and the bad and all of it and use it to your advantage. Don't throw all of anything away. I want you all to study your oppressors just as much as you study yourselves, because in order to escape the conditioning that our brother, Dr. Carter G. Woodson said, to rinse that conditioning that we have been drenched with, it's going to take consistent study. I want you to be active where you are. Be active in your family. You know, still to this day, even if my husband is not home, I got a neighbor on the block to take my garbage out. Keisha don't touch garbage. I have that relationship. Come over here. Hubby working late. Take this garbage out for me. Take the garbage out for me. It's a relationship. Build relationships with your neighbors. Know your neighbors. Make sure that you can come to them and they can come to you. Be active in your entire community. And what I mean by that, please become more politically aware, more politically astute. Try to get on these community boards. Start there. Start going to these precinct meetings. You have precinct command meetings that's open to the public. Go to these meetings. When you have a town hall, show up. Even if the topic doesn't directly affect you, it does affect you. So when you go to these things, you see special interest groups who come in with briefcases of money to pay off politicians. I know they can't wait for Sister Keisha to croak because I got too many secrets. But open yourselves up to that. Become more physically fit. Become more healthy mentally. There is a lot thrown at us 24 hours a day, and you have to stay afoot. And I'm not here to judge anybody or telling anybody how they should do that. I got an uncle who's 80 years old. He drink his liquor and smoke a joint every day and healthy as everybody else, and nobody bothers him. You understand? But he has great wisdom. Great wisdom. And yeah, he might blow that stuff in my face, but I'm sitting there and I'm soaking up game. I'm soaking up wisdom. And I know that no matter what, even in his old age, he got my back. So be one with your family. Be one with your community. Be one with your neighbors. Get involved politically. Study military science. I can't stress that enough, because you're going to have to know how to navigate through all of this stuff and how to get yourself and your people out of it in case something go down. Get you some friends who are in military or former military or law enforcement. People standovers. I don't rock with the police. Yep, I want everything they got. Everything. Come over here and talk to me. My major in college was police science. So I want to know everything that they know, everything, so that I know what's coming at me before it comes at me, if you understand. I want us to be more cohesive with our Black business owners, because once they take off, and a lot of independent Black businesses taking off right now, even during COVID, and kudos to all of you. But when it comes to the point where we have to take over politically, it is the business structure that must fund it. So you have to be cohesive. So if Brother Geechie got a plan, he got a school he want to open up. Look here, I've been coming to this store for 20 years. I need you to give $1,000 to Sister Keisha campaign, because she gonna make sure I get that grant money so I can open up this school for our kids. That's how it works, family. That's how it works. And of course, you can catch me every Thursday on YouTube and Facebook with my brother Tad and my brother Ashe as we continue with Thorough Black Talk. We give it to you real with that Brooklyn flavor, how we do here in New York.
I appreciate you so much. This is so powerful. I'm actually, when I finish this, I'm going to watch it because I love it, man. You said so many powerful things. I appreciate you so much. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can still comment. You're rewatching, you can still comment, share, invite some people to the dialogue. Sis, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Y'all be well and be safe. Take care of yourselves.